We'll continue to cover this. We'll have a few more bites from it as it goes along, if it doesn't devolve into more of a circus than it already has. My friend, State Representative Paul Kurtman, joining us right now to talk a little bit about the special session called by Governor Greitens. Paul, how are you?
I'm doing good, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for giving us a few minutes today. So where do things stand right now in the special session?
Well, the Senate is going into Jefferson City this week. The bill is going to be introduced by Senator Bob Onder, and so I think right now the whole effort is being maneuvered so that way the Senate can get all of their legislative work done this week.
Okay.
And then next week, the House is going to wind up going in. We'll finish up our legislative duties with that particular bill before we send it to the governor's office.
Okay. So is it one bill or two? I thought there were two different issues they wanted to look at.
There are two different issues on this particular matter. One of the issues has to deal with the ordinances passed by St. Louis City. The other issue has to deal with some of our laws that were struck down by a U.S. district judge dealing with certain standards that abortion facilities have to abide by, certain medical standards that were struck down. So we had it in our law. A U.S. Judge struck it down, and so I think that we might be going back to also address those issues as well.
And from what I've read of it, it simply says that if an ambulance has to respond to an abortion clinic, the clinic can't demand that they only come in through the back door. They've just got to let them get to the patient as quickly as possible.
Yeah, there's that. And the thing is, too, is this has happened before. Like, we've had abortion facilities in Missouri in which ambulances have had to be called on a seemingly on a somewhat regular basis. And so we want to make sure that there are certain standards that these facilities have to abide by if for no other reason, just for the health and safety of the people in that facility. So there are other standards as well. And a lot of times some of these abortion facilities have gotten a lot of waivers over the last 8 years. So now to have all of them struck down by a U.S. judge, I just think kind of violates not just the spirit of the law, but the letter of the law that we're trying to keep in place just for the safety and well-being of the people in those facilities.
Sure. Well, Mayor Cruson and some of the folks on the board here who passed this basically abortion sanctuary law by building in discrimination protections for Planned Parenthood, they just want you to leave them alone. They think that they should be able to pass ridiculous laws like that if they want to in the city.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I think that people on the left and the right really should be highly offended by the way those ordinances were written. I read it earlier today, and the way they define employer, if you're training somebody who has a calling, and so you're going to train them. And so there's not really any exemptions for religious institutions. The only exemptions that they do have in here for their ordinances are exemptions for laws that don't even exist. They're either already covered by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, or else they're already covered when the Supreme Court ruled on Obamacare. But the way some of these ordinances are written, there's one section in here where it says that an employer can't print or circulate literature that would indicate a preference for reproductive or abortion issues. And so that's highly offensive to people that are interested in their First Amendment rights or freedom of speech, or maybe a religious organization who wants to get out a pro-life message. And so I'm eager to see the bill that Senator Onder has filed, and I'm eager to do some work on this issue. Certainly, governments, whether it's state government, federal government, and even a local government, can all be responsible for big government-type policies. And these ordinances passed by St. Louis City are liberty-stealing, First Amendment robbing type of ordinances.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Ryan Sylvia, I'm assuming he's one of the state senators out of the Kansas City area. He's been very critical of the governor for calling a special session for this reason. What do you think about it?
The special session, we call it a special session. The official title is an extraordinary session. And so certainly under extraordinary circumstances, and only then, should the legislature or the governor call in the legislature to propose legislation. When we're talking about an issue where a local municipality is directly violating the First Amendment rights of their people, they are subdivisions of the state. Okay, so cities and municipalities, they are products of our state government, and it is our responsibility as a state legislature to make sure that we rein in municipalities or these political subdivisions whenever they implement such big government practices or ordinances like this one that St. Louis City has implemented.
Right. Yeah, I might agree with you on that one. I'm not sure that the tax break or the electric rate break in the boot heel amounted to an extraordinary issue, though, because that was the first one, and it's cost $66,000 a week during a special session. I mean, I think that there are circumstances under which we should call these, but maybe one out of he's batting 500 at this point, I would think.
Yeah, I was one of the few no votes on that bill during special session. I think that extraordinary special sessions should really be called for extraordinary purposes. And I've always had a problem with special sessions in which we're trying to just compete for business. I think that those things can be done in regular session. But certainly that's all at the purview of the governor and in some cases the legislature. But I don't know if we're going to have any more special sessions. That's the rumor that there might be more. I don't know what those could be for, though, after this one.
I know that you're not personally responsible for the governor's schedule, but have you heard anything about he's facing a deadline here, isn't he, at the end of June to sign some of these bills that haven't been signed yet out of the legislative session?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly what the date is, but we do have a date on the books by which all the legislation has to be signed, or else it's vetoed, and so he's got to this date to do that. And then after that, anything that does veto, we'll have an opportunity to see what it is we may want to override whenever we go back for our veto session in September.
Right. Yeah, I'm still waiting for word on the minimum wage override. I don't think that's been signed yet. There's several bills that I was watching for that I'm not sure have gotten the governor's signature yet. So we're going to have to look into that and see what it is. Listen, right. Paul Kurtman, I appreciate your time, and if you keep us updated when you get down to Jeff City next week, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Mark.
Great talking to you. Thank you. All right, State Representative Paul Kurtman giving us an update there on what's going on with this extraordinary legislative session. I've been calling it a special session because that's what most people refer to it as, but legally it's an extraordinary legislative session. What say you? 3-1